Well, President Saleh is thought to have suffered burns to 40% of his body and a possible head injury. Earlier, I spoke to Dr. Bob Arnott and asked him how serious Saleh's condition might be.
Well, he has his burns on his face and his chest, which is serious, and at his age, it could be very serious. What we don't know, are they the simple first-degree burn that you get from burning yourself on a stove or from a sunburn, or are they much more severe third-degree burn? The other thing that's concerning is they're talking about bleeding inside his skull, which is what we call a subdural hematoma. And when that happens, it can actually crush parts of the brain and kill you. So you have to be very careful, observe it very carefully, and often there's a neurosurgical procedure where they burr a hole into the skull or even take part of it out to take the pressure off the brain and to even remove that clot. There are also reports that he's injured his chest, that part of his chest has actually collapsed. So what happens, Shuli, in any kind of presidential medicine is we don't really know what's happened. These are all outside reports. Are we being given a more serious case than there really is, or is it not quite severe? What's surprising is how long he stayed before he went to Saudi Arabia. He was able to do an interview, labored, which probably accounts for why, he had that lung condition there that made him hard to speak, but a little difficult to know why he was transferred. I was actually treated in Yemen not too long ago. Excellent hospitals, great surgeons, great anesthesia. So what we don't know is, did he go to Saudi Arabia for political reasons, or was it a medical necessity? And the subdural hematoma would be a real medical emergency and a good reason to transfer.
So given what we do know, and I appreciate the point about there's often a lot of misinformation about these kinds of injuries, is it likely that he's going to be recovered enough to be back in Yemen in a few days' time, which is what his officials are saying?
Well, it really depends on the brain injury. Those brain injuries, you want to have somebody in an intensive care unit. They're being watched very carefully. And, if I were his doctor and he had a subdural hematoma, I wouldn't let him leave the country for a month. If he has 40% burns, and a lot of those are what we call third-degree burns, where you're really worried about infection, where you have fluid issues in terms of losing too many body salts, again, I want to keep him there for a month or more. So it really depends on the severity. If you take the severity at face value for what it's being reported as in the newspapers and online, then, gee, I wouldn't let him leave for a month or so.
And I know that you've met with him before in the past. I mean, how is he anyway? Is he a fit guy? Is he in good shape?
He's a really kind of taut, fit, tough guy. I interviewed him in his palace. In fact, I walked in with a small camera we call backpack journalism, and he looks and he goes, "That's unprofessional. Why are you using such a small camera? I'm a president." So I apologized and did the interview, but he's a tough guy. Remember, 11 people got killed around him. 5 of his advisors were also injured. So this is a major blast. And, it's been reported as a rocket and now as a bomb inside the palace, which would account for the more severe injuries. So, this is not a sissy. This is a tough, tough, tough guy. And, I would suspect that the injuries they're reporting are probably pretty close to the truth, because he's not a guy that whines or complains. He's tough. He's tough and he's fit.
But what about aftercare? I mean, in your medical opinion, is he going to be able to operate at 100% if and when he comes back to Yemen?
Sure. So it's a really good question. So the burns, if he recovers from those, should be 100%. The lung condition, again, a temporary condition. Pulling the pieces of shrapnel out, actually, these are bomb shards, being reported as wood as opposed to metal, should be a no-brainer. The only thing I'd be really concerned about is the bleeding inside his brain. Now, if that expanded to a certain extent or destroyed any of the white matter, that's what could harm him in terms of his ability to potentially speak or think or carry out the duties of a president. The only other point, Shuli, is that, of course, if you've had those burns and that extent of injury, it really wears you out. You're going to be tired. You're not going to be at it 12 to 18 hours a day handling a major crisis like this, the biggest crisis in Yemen in 40 years. You're going to be, having a very difficult time keeping yourself in the game.